Okay, David, we're going to roll back a bit there. It sort of rolled off your tongue a little bit too easy that you sort of just met Mike Tyson. So tell us about Iron Mike.
Iron Mike. So, I grew up in the 80s. I saw Mike Tyson doing his thing, and I was a huge fan. And he was fighting Julius Francis in the UK. So I managed to find what hotel he was staying at, and parked out and met him. And it was crazy. There was no one with him. He had a security. He had Frank Warren.
No, he needed a bodyguard, did he?
I know. Simon, the weirdest thing is, so I was as close to him as I am to you, and I was listening to him talk. Mike Tyson, my hero, and it was this time of year. It was January. He was complaining about how cold it was. I was like, Iron Mike Tyson's worried. I'm fine. It's warm. I was like, he's worried about the cold, and it was just simple things like that. This sort of legendary thing, and I got a photo with him, and I had my arm around him, and it was before selfie, so I was trying to take a photo, and the security guard was looking at me like he wanted to kill me, and eventually his Lloyd Hannigan ended up taking the photo. Anyway, so I met Mike Tyson. I said to Tyson I thought he was going to win this fight in 1 round. He told me it was going to be a 3-round fight. He won it in 2 rounds. So it's like, between me and Mike, we got it right. Anyway, so this photo went online, and this chap on this website, it's like, got in touch and said, do you want to do press work for me? And I said, of course I do. So he would send me to press conferences, weigh-ins. I was ringside for a Lennox Lewis fight in London. I went to see Joe Calzaghe train for one of his fights, and I was literally in the ring with Joe Calzaghe and his father training with an old camcorder filming. I'm a young kid, I didn't know anything, and I'm filming these guys, and it's just incredible. And Joe Calzaghe and Enzo Calzaghe were the nicest people. I would film, and then Enzo would say, do you want us to do a different angle? Do you want to ask us any questions? And I was like, no, I don't. I've got nothing. I'm too scared. I'm too intimidated. Now I'd loved that opportunity, but I was just filming. And to this day, in terms of boxing, being that close to Joe Calzaghe, who was a super middleweight, a 12-stone man, seeing the speed, the power, and the sheer violence that he was capable of while just training with his father, I've never seen anything like it. And that's from a super middleweight. But I got to meet loads of people, and yeah, it was brilliant. So your question was it good research? Yes, I would write up weigh-ins I'd been to. I would get to interview fighters, and then I would write that content up for his website, and then mention my company's betting odds.
Well, there's plenty of stuff that you've done as well apart from that. So you've been a successful poker player. You've been a tennis courtsider. Tell us about what's the secret to successful poker playing?
Poker was, so I was quite good at poker. I would never say, I would never claim to be a professional or an expert, but for me, again, it was that whole thing of, right, this is a psychological thing as much as a mathematical thing. So it was a combination of, right, I'm going to take my analytical mind to this game and my psychological prowess to this game. And back then, I would do things like, so in poker, the tells are a big thing, right? If you're bluffing or you're confident, are you blinking too much, are you nervous? So I would try and create noise around my tells by looking at my watch. And if the second hand was pointing that way, I might just scratch here. And the second hand was pointing down, I might do this. Or if the second hand was pointing down, I might take longer to make a decision. If it was pointing up, I'd be really quick with the decision. So I just try and create noise around my bluffs. But having done that, I thought that was just all a bit sort of performative and actually not really giving me an edge. So I decided one rule: if I'm going to be good at poker, I am going to be good enough that when I am given my hole cards, the 2 cards that are secret to me, I'm going to look at them once, and regardless of what I've got, pocket aces or 2-7 offsuit, whatever comes in the community cards, I'm not looking at those cards again. Because when you see recreational players, when the excitement of them getting into a big pot, they'll be like, oh, have I really got those 2 aces, or I'm making up, they'll check and they'll check. So I made that as my fundamental thing. At the time, my mother was very ill. She was in a nursing home, so I would visit her often, and I've developed a very strong poker face because of that. I had to hide my emotions, and that was a very useful skill for playing poker, because being a little bit nervous about whether I'm going to win a hand of poker was nothing compared to what I was experiencing in my private life. So that was something. I think the most I won in a tournament was around £4,000. It paid for my poker sort of would pay for holidays and sort of treats and stuff, but no way a lifestyle supplement. And then online I would play. There was a site called PKR, and it was a brilliant site for emulating real world poker, because there were 3 things about PKR that I liked. First of all, I could play against Americans. So I would play on a Saturday morning, fresh cup of coffee, focused, playing against Americans who were coming in from the club at 2 a.m. the night before on a Friday night. They're probably not that clued up to their poker. And it was also a site where you could create an avatar. So it was very much about the graphics of the player that you represent at the table. So you could give a tattoo or headphones and make your player look cool at the table. So again, I was thinking, you're probably not that serious a poker player if that's something that's important to you. And then the brilliant thing about PKR was it had you were dealt your cards and they were hidden off screen, and you would only see them again if you pressed a button. So it was and your player would be animated, seeing everyone else would see that you've looked at your cards. So I was able to take that offline skill of only looking once into an online environment. So just sort of scaling up those few things that I thought were potentially an edge. So I played tournaments in real life and I'd played cash games online, and yeah, PKR was pretty successful.
So tell us about the court siding.
That was a disaster. It was incredibly good fun, but an absolute disaster. So a friend of mine, one of my oldest friends in the industry, lovely guy, he built some software that we tested for a few months, and we drove to the south of France. I don't know why I went to the south of France for this, but we drove to the south of France for a live Fed Cup. The Fed Cup is like the Davis Cup for the WTA. So a Fed Cup match, and we sat in the back of this arena in about 100-degree heat in the south of France with a huge brick laptop. And the idea is that if you can see that the ball is out before the umpire calls that, and before that signal gets back to the betting companies, you've got several seconds advantage on people who are betting and making the odds back in the UK betting companies. So we tested it, and obviously the theory stacked up. This is one of the things. The practicality of it was chaos. The Wi-Fi was breaking down. The software kept having to be rebooted. It was it was incredibly fun, but it was chaos. It took us, it was a 10-hour drive to get there. We ended up ditching the court siding from actually doing it at the arena, and we found a cafe where they had terrestrial TV, and you could actually courtside off terrestrial TV pictures, because the terrestrial TV pictures aren't getting encrypted for the digital output. So you've still got an advantage. So we could actually do it off TV rather than being by the court. But again, it was just one of these things. Ethically, I'm not entirely comfortable that that's a cool thing to do. I think maybe if it had been tremendously successful, I might have shelved the ethics. But the fact that it didn't really work, I don't mind. I'm glad I tried it, but yeah, it was practically a nightmare.
Okay, then one morning you woke up and you realised that the bookmaking industry that you were in had suddenly turned into the stuffy stockbroker thing that you escaped as a youngster.
Yeah.
So what was the catalyst moment there?
So I think the industry was, for me, the industry was flying 2007, 2008. By then you've had 7 years of online, technology's really flowing. But I think at that point it became the value in domain expertise was shifting away, and it became, let's just get generic roles in, product managers and project managers. We had more project managers than domain experts, and you can't manage a project if the project doesn't exist, and the project doesn't exist because the domain experts aren't coming up with new ideas. And I actually think if you ask people now what's the best innovation in sports betting, they will often still say cash out, right? And that's been around for 10, 15 years. And so we're still in an industry where that's the best innovation we've seen, I think. So these sort of generic roles were there, and like I said, with you, you've got a strong sense for the feel of the market. You when you meet someone, you know if they're a betting person or not. You can just tell. And when you've got someone coming in and you just know they're not a betting person, it just gave me the sort of fear that and they're high-level decision makers. So I think that the success of the industry got ahead of itself to the detriment of actually who should be creating these new products.
So did you jump, or were you pushed?
I was going to resign. I'd already be doing part of one of my final jobs at the company was I set up an office in South Africa, and I'd also go and speak at conferences about analytics products that we were building. So I was sort of doing some due diligence, looking at these companies, speaking to these companies, and basically deciding I'm going to go and do this on my own. So I thought, right, I'm going to give myself 12 months to resign, build my own piece of software, bootstrap it, fund it myself and do it myself. And then a new chap was brought on above me. I had quite a good job at that. I'd go to South Africa quite often on business class, and I had a lot of autonomy. Because I was sort of been there so long, I'd sort of earned quite a favourable position at that company. And often people would come in, and I think they were a little bit jealous that I had this role. So this chap came in, and within a matter of weeks, he decided to make me redundant. And I was like, that's fine, I was going to leave anyway. But yeah, so I was made redundant, and yeah, I was going to leave anyway.
So that was, I assume, that came with a severance package. So that was actually worked out okay for you.
Peanuts, I mean, fine, yeah. I paid for a trip around Australia and, you know, a camper van, but no, nothing crazy.
So was the opportunity to take off and distance yourself from the world of betting something that was very important in hindsight?
Yeah, it left a nasty taste in my mouth because I loved that company. I was literally there from, you know, early 20s to late 30s. It was a huge portion of my life. And then as I left, it was pretty grotty. I was treated, you know, I was treated like a criminal, frankly. And it's fine because redundancy is harsh, but people have subsequently got in touch with me and apologised for what went on in that period. But you know, so to distance myself, absolutely. I took 6 months out. I went around Australia. I bought a dog. I didn't even think about betting for that time. And then when I came back, I was, you know, revitalised and just ready to go and set up my own business with that firmly behind me.
Okay, so was it, when you got out of gambling, was getting back into gambling again something that you were looking forward to doing when you returned to the UK?
Yes, so it was kind of via, you know, you always have to sort of pivot when things change in your life. So my first company was an analytics company, and we had some betting clients, but we also had sports organisations who wanted their data to be run through our software. So there was always sort of a betting angle to the analytics side, even though it wasn't specifically betting. Yeah, and then after a year, I ended up setting up another business with Chris Fawcett that was obviously about the betting side of things. But yeah, so I sort of stepped away from it, but it was inevitably I'd be drawn back because it was just, it's kind of what my expertise is in.
And was there ever the temptation to use those expertise to go solely punting for a living?
Not for me. Chris obviously has done that for me. No, like I said, the things that I'm most confident about are boxing, and I'd never stake a lifestyle amount of money on that sport. The football betting I have done, so Chris built a system for predicting football results and betting on with the recreational bookmakers, and I've used that for a long period of time, and it's brought us as a group of bettors tremendous success, but we could do that in our spare time. So there was never a need for me to go, I'm going to just go and do this full time, because it was always a spare time pursuit, and we have 2 other businesses that keep us busy. So that's kind of been sidelined, that side of things.
Did you never, really struck me as being a very, very confident person, but have you never a bit dubious about the football because of the massive syndicates that are already, you know, in it?
So I'm the sort of person that if I do something or I say something, I'm kind of confident in that. I don't. Some people call me intense. Okay, I can be intense, but I'm like, well, how else would you be if you're making it important? You have to be intense. And having known Chris Fawcett as long as I do, as well as I do, between us, I'm it's not arrogance, it's confidence. And so I just have faith in what we do together. So there are these huge, and I have tremendous respect for other people who do it as well, who do it better than us. But I can respect what other people do, but still not be intimidated by what they're doing and have confidence in what we're doing.